Hello, I'm back. The reflection today is called The Love of Christ. I've got a couple of quick quotes to start. The first, Jesus invites us to build the civilization of love together in the situations we are called to live every day. This is a quote of the day from 28 June 2019 from the Pope. An African proverb: if you want to go faster, go alone. If you want to go farther, go together. Fear the Lord is the beginning of knowledge. Fools despise wisdom and instruction. Proverbs 1:7. Let no debt remain outstanding except the continuing debt to love one another. For one who loves all persons has fulfilled the law. Romans 13:8. In today's Gospel, the first commandment cited is that of the Father's 10 Commandments. The second is Christ's. The two together rule the world and consume all 10 of the original, of which I have spoken on before and will again next the commandments come up. Here I will speak on Christ's love and the power of love. Christ based his entire theology on love of all persons, making his first commandment, after the love of God, before all else, to be loving one another as he loves us. Christ loved us unconditionally, without question, without any precondition, pre-status, such as those so-called leaders of the Episcopal Church of America, Wales, Canada, and Africa now place, or the Evangelical Covenant Church, the United Methodist Church of the world. These so-called churches, these that wish to call themselves of Christ, violate the core principle of his teaching and should be struck from their positions and not be allowed to call themselves church. For there is no precondition on love. These groups, as we shall refer to them, and any others who violate the core teachings, the central principles of the Lord's theology, they cannot call themselves Christian, because the word means of the teachings of Christ. You cannot be of the teachings of Christ if you cannot adhere to and abide by the central premise of the first commandment: love one another as I have loved you, which means love everyone without precondition. Love them fully, without question, every day of their and your respective lives. This means love everyone who's white, black, oriental, every ethnicity, including Mexican, South American, every country of origin. This means loving them even if they're gay. This means that you don't hold on to the preconceptions of the Old Testament. It means you hug and abide by the New Testament, New Covenant, which is love one another as I have loved you. Love your neighbor as yourself. But when you say you are committing a sin, you are an abomination, right there you have put a precondition on your love. Right there you are abiding by the Old Testament, not by the New Testament, because the New Testament does not make anybody an abomination. That is the Old Testament. There is no abomination in the New Testament. That is one of those things left over from the translations, left from those monks. Go to the original. that did not exist. Loving someone, as those of you with children know, does not mean that you necessarily will like them every second of their lives. Oh, but there are moments that you love them, that they are unlikable. They are the most disreputable creatures on the face of the earth. And I know that the mums, especially, who are reading this or listening, are smiling and nodding. Especially those who have had teenage daughters. I, of course, was a bloody saint as a child, watching for lightning. No, Mum and I had our moments, but we respected each other to be away from each other during those moments. I was a rodeo rider, so we had most of those moments over the phone, 450 miles distant. You other mums and dads, you can all recall the days you had happily sold those child for a moment, but then you loved them, and you were quite happy to not have been near them during that despicable moment, that despicable creation of someone else, but you still love them. Christ and God always love us, even when we sin. Just as a loving parent loves you, even when you transgress. But needs must you repair that broken relationship quickly by begging forgiveness and repenting. And unlike your earthly parent, you can't well bake the Lord Jesus 4 dozen of his most favourite cookies as an apology, nor bake the Lord Almighty 4 cakes and 8 pounds of brownies while you're grounded. Mum took me off grounding just so I'd stop baking. But you can do such service for the poor as a way of giving back to the Son of Man and the Father Almighty if you transgress against them in such a way that harms or offends the little ones. Service is a good way to show your love, especially anonymous service. Things I've noted before: weeding someone's garden, raking their leaves, as we in the north approach that time, mowing their lawn, shoveling their walk, all especially if they normally pay for this service, for then you're doing them a great service and giving them a benefit in too. Things that can't be done anonymously are things like carrying their groceries or helping them carry a large item, but these are still appreciated. I once shoveled the entire block overnight. It then snowed 32 inches, so it didn't matter a bit. It was the Halloween blizzard of 1990. So not only did no one not notice my service, it did not matter a wink. But the next day, after I closed the clinic first thing in the morning, I was in charge. Everyone else, the clinic supervisors and the clinic managers, they were all ensconced in a local hotel for the annual meeting. So they didn't know anything that was happening. They didn't know about any 32 inches of snow overnight. I called the clinic director, and he opened the curtains on his ground room floor and couldn't see anything. It was all drifted up over his window. So he agreed with me. The clinic was closed. But then I made a bunch of sandwiches, filled hot pots. You remember those old hot pots, the air pots? Filled one with coffee, one with hot cocoa, and walked a mile down, along, through all of that snow to where the buses were stuck, the public buses were stuck in along the lake down below the house, and went from bus to bus to bus, bringing the drivers food and hot bev. The buses were heated, but they'd all been stuck for at least 5 hours by that point, so they most welcomed that food. I also had the leftover Halloween candy because we had no trick-or-treaters the night before. So I went bus to bus to bus, and then came back bus to bus to bus. Find ways like this to show your love to the Lord's people. Each person born, no matter what his or her beliefs, is born of God. Wanting to know each person, wanting to learn, wanting to hear about each person with whom you interact is a way to honor the Lord with no difference to their race or faith. Prepare a question if you want, so you can reach across that divide, so you can have the commonality. I make an effort to have a ready question for each person of each faith, to ask them about their faith, to ask them about themselves. When I see a Muslim, now in the summer, I ask them about Eid. That is a celebration similar to our Christmas. It comes after Ramadan. Even though it was a couple months ago now, we still talk about Christmas for months. I ask Sikh men, turban, about their faith, and they're quite happy to instruct me, because to them, having someone ask them honestly and openly about their faith, they're pleased. All of us are open and happy to speak about our faith. And as my family, my mother's family, were Jewish, so I am by tradition a Jewess, and I have been instructed on it. I am happy to help my sisters to prepare their Jewish feasts. So when I'm in market, my crutches are a great help to take things down off the back of the top shelf. And I will speak to them of our faith. So be prepared. Be proud and loving of God. Regardless of their faith and your faith, you are all of God. You are all loved by God because you are all of God. Go in faith. Go in peace.